My name is Emily, and for most of my marriage I thought I understood it all. James and I had been married for 12 years, raising 2 children in a quiet suburban neighborhood. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple. Matching smiles in holiday photos, polite waves at school events, occasional dinners out where we laughed at the same old jokes. But behind closed doors, something had begun to fade. James worked long hours in finance. He provided well, yes, but he often came home exhausted, more connected to his emails than to me. I told myself it was normal, that marriages had seasons, and that I just needed patience. But nights grew colder, conversations shorter, and gradually I started to feel invisible. One lonely evening, I found myself in the garage across from Daniel, an old college friend who had recently moved back to town. He was only supposed to drop off a book he thought I'd like. But as the garage door closed behind us, the air grew heavy with words neither of us had planned to speak. "You look tired," he said softly. "I feel like I haven't really slept in years," I replied, half laughing, half confessing. It wasn't about romance, at least not yet. It was about being seen, about someone noticing the weight I carried. For a fleeting moment, I let myself rest in that fragile comfort. What I didn't know was that James had come home early. His car was parked silently outside, and he had walked around the house toward the garage, curious about the muffled voices. I remember the exact words that sealed my fate, I later realized. Daniel asked, "Does he even realize what he's losing?" Without thinking, without meaning it harshly, I whispered, "No, he doesn't." Then came the knock, 3 sharp raps that made my heart drop. James stood at the door, face unreadable. He didn't yell. He didn't accuse. He looked past me, nodded once at Daniel, and said quietly, "Emily, we need to talk." Daniel muttered an excuse and left, disappearing into the night. I stood in the cold garage, hands trembling, mind racing for explanations that felt feeble even to me. Inside, James was already seated at the kitchen table, his phone face down, hands folded. He looked like a man preparing for a battle, but his voice was calm. "How long has this been going on?" he asked. "There's nothing going on," I said too quickly. "It was just a conversation." His eyes searched mine, and for the first time in years I felt truly seen. But it wasn't the attention I had longed for, it was the piercing look of a man realizing the ground beneath him had shifted. "I heard enough," he said. "I heard you say I don't realize what I'm losing. Maybe you're right. Maybe I don't." The weight of his words pressed down harder than any accusation could. In that moment I realized it wasn't really about Daniel. It was about the cracks in our marriage that I had chosen to fill with silence rather than honesty. James stood, pushed back his chair, and walked toward the bedroom without another word. The echo of his footsteps on the hardwood felt like a countdown, pulling him farther from me. I sat frozen, staring at the untouched glass of water, my mind screaming to follow, to explain, to beg, but my body stayed still. The knock had changed everything. Not because of a secret affair, it hadn't come to that, but because it forced both of us to face the truth we had been avoiding. Our marriage was no longer the safe, steady home we pretended it to be. That night, sleep eluded me. I listened to James moving restlessly in the guest room down the hall. He hadn't chosen our bed, and that choice alone spoke volumes. The next day the house felt different. James moved quietly, spoke only when necessary. He poured cereal for the kids, drove them to school, never once looking at me. The silence wasn't angry. It was heavier, hollow and final. By mid-afternoon I couldn't bear it. I found him in the backyard, trimming the hedges. "James, please. We need to talk," I said, voice trembling. He paused, set the shears down, and turned to face me with an expression I couldn't read, neither anger nor sadness, but something colder. "Talk, Emily. I'm listening," he said. I poured everything out, how invisible I'd felt, how I'd buried my loneliness under routines and polite smiles. How Daniel's visit had never been about attraction, but about wanting someone to hear me. I spoke fast, desperate, as if stopping would close the door forever. He was silent for a long time. Finally he said, "You had 12 years to tell me these things. 12 years I would have listened. But instead, I hear it in my own garage, from your lips to another man." His words cut through me. He wasn't wrong. I had let silence replace honesty until it was too late. That evening he made a decision. "I don't know what this marriage is anymore. But I can't live in a house where I'm the last to know how my wife feels. I'm moving into an apartment for now. I'll still be here for the kids, but we need space." The sound of the front door closing felt like the final note of a song I had ignored for too long. Days turned into weeks. He came by for the children, polite but distant. We didn't argue. We didn't discuss the garage. We existed like business partners, exchanging schedules and updates. The heart had been taken out of our marriage, leaving only a skeleton behind. Alone in the quiet house, I began to see things I had been blind to. James hadn't been perfect, long hours, tired silence, but he had been faithful, steady, present. I had drifted first, seeking comfort elsewhere instead of demanding it at home. I wrote letters I never sent, each a confession, an apology, a hope he might return. Then one evening he came to pick up the kids and lingered in the doorway. For the first time since that night he looked at me fully. "Emily," he said slowly, "I don't hate you. I'm just tired of being the man you settle for instead of the man you want." I swallowed hard. He wasn't asking for forgiveness. He was offering a truth I had to face. The garage had been nothing more than a conversation, but in reality, it had revealed everything. It was the mirror showing both of us what we had ignored. In the months that followed, we signed papers, divided furniture, explained to our children why Mom and Dad wouldn't live together. I smiled through the pain for their sake, but at night, I faced the emptiness I had created. The knock on the garage door hadn't been a scandalous reveal. It had been the arrival of truth, uncomfortable, unavoidable, irreversible. Changed everything. Not with shouting or betrayal, but with silence that could never be filled again. That's the betrayal no one warns you about, not the dramatic kind but the quiet kind, born of neglect, ending in indifference. Sometimes marriages don't explode, they simply wither until one knock is enough to bring it all crashing down.